What's up, guys? This is Tucker from MACkite Boarding. Today I have a fun parawing review overview for you here. What we have is the Aeryn P1, spelled A-E-R-Y-N, like that. And as you can tell, I rode the 4 meter here. Comes in this nice bag. Let's get her unpacked. And maybe we can fast forward this or do a little magic trick to make this go by faster. All right, so this is the Aeryn P1 Parawing. This is the 4 meter size. I've been testing this one for a while. Had the privilege to get an early prototype, demo, sample, whatever you want to call it here. And initially what excited me about this wing, honestly, was the price, but also the pedigree. So the Aeryn company shares designers with the Peter Lynn group from the kiteboarding days. Obviously, they are very familiar with making ram air, single skin, bladderless kites, things like that. They've been around since the beginning, making quality kite gear. So all that to say, they know how to make flying machines. And this one, for that reason, kind of piqued my interest in looking at the pricing structure. I think this is a very enticing price, a high quality wing at a more digestible price, especially if you're really falling in love with the sport and you want to stock up on 2 or 3 different sizes. It can really add up. So that savings can really be nice to have, and wanted to get a sample, obviously, to kind of go, okay, really what are we sacrificing here with the price? Because sometimes it's not worth the savings. It's just better to spend. So digging into this one, I was excited to find out. Getting in the mail, I was stoked to see we got a high quality stuff here. Really robust build from Aeryn here. So that's cool. The material of the Canopy is a heavier weight material. It's got some nice sewn-in stiffening structure. I like the high-end wings, and even has some on the trailing edge here, which is only found on some of the most expensive wings. So that's cool. Our bridles are really nicely spliced, smooth, no splits. These are direct bridles. So that really, makes them easier to stow, smoother to stow, and that's fun. We'll get into that more. But there's some other things in this wing that are unique, and we'll kind of just go through it and give you the quick rundown, and then follow that up with a review based on my experience on the P1 so far. So like all of our parawings, kind of start with the bar, because that's your interface here. And there is some cool stuff going on. It is a very simple bar. It's just black, no color coding on the grip. So maybe that's something that could be improved in the future, but given how stark the red bridle pigtails are here, I think it's pretty easy to find even when you're juggling the bar. It's right here in your face. So I think these red front of the bar indicator pigtails work good for that. And then the gray in the middle and the black on the back, that didn't translate into the actual bridle lines, only the pigtails. So they're all white, as you can tell here. So sometimes it's a little bit interesting looking at these and deciphering, what stage is what. But any experienced rider should have a decent enough handling that they're not constantly dealing with major issues. And having direct bridles rather than splitting bridles that section off also tends to make those a little easier to sort out and shuffle. And then also the smoothness of the lines kind of sort themselves out as well. So coming off of the bar, we have 3 stages here, A, B, C. The front one connects maybe 2 inches from the end, so we have a bit of a knob or a head or whatever you want to call the end of the stick here, which is nice. I think this is a real underrated feature. I think it's something we're going to see on a lot of future wings. And what it does, it just gives you more leverage over the front of the lines, especially when you're riding overpowered or you're just walking around staging your wing. It's a lot more comfortable to grab the bar like this with a bit more leverage on those front lines, rather than way back here where you're constantly having to wrench your wrist to angle that bar where you want it to go. You can split this with a front hand if you're just walking around, simple, or two hands. You know, it gives you a nice wide grip to grab there if you're two-handed riding. So this is a really neat feature. The other thing that it allows you to do, and I'll get more to this in my review, but it allows you to wrap your front line bridles around the end of the bar like this. That helps reduce the bar pressure and angles the front of the sail more into the wind. So again, we'll get more into that in a second, but that is a really handy kind of a second gear, we'll call it, in the wing. And some people may prefer riding like that all the time. So an interesting feature there that allows that, whereas other bars that terminate right at the end where the bridle connects don't allow for that. The bar length on this is kind of middle of the road, if not maybe a little long, but for a 4 meter, I'd say average. The bar diameter is maybe a little bigger than some of the others, but it's really comfortable, really light, really nice grip on it. So I'm a fan. It's nice having a little bit more bar there just for more control, and it's big enough or small enough that you can still stash it away. It's about hip width, maybe even a little narrower than hip width for me, so it stashes away really nice in most of the belts that we're using. So no complaints there. We have these kind of neoprene covers over the beginnings here of the pigtails in the bar. Over the bar, they're really not doing anything, so I mean, you could even just pull them off if you wanted to, having a more direct connection, or leave them on there. And really what their intention is to cover up these pigtail knots. And as you can tell, they've kind of slipped off mine as I've been playing with it a long time and putting it through its paces, but that's the idea. So if you don't like that, you can pull it right off. But it is kind of nice on your fingers to have that soft point, especially in salt water where that bridle pigtail might chafe on your hand over time if you don't have the neoprene cover on. So it's cool. You can keep them on, you can take them off, whatever feels best for you. I've just left them on stock for testing because they don't really bother me, and you know, even though they've slipped off, I haven't had any issues with tangles or anything like that with these knots. They're pretty low profile, so no issues really as far as I'm concerned there. Getting into the bridles, as I mentioned, they're not color coded. There is a bit more down here, a bit more meaty at the bottom of the lines because they are direct bridles and they don't split off. But that also means these bridles are going to carry more load because it's not just terminating at a single point. So I would anticipate there's being less stretch in these over time, less maintenance. So that's a good thing. They're also, as I mentioned, very smooth, silky smooth. The way they're terminated is super high quality. They're sewn, braided together, and they don't have any rough ends. So even sliding your hand like that doesn't feel like you're going to cut your palm all up. And then having the quick disconnect here allows you some options in terms of changing your bridle links, making those fine-tuning adjustments. If you go powered up through a wave and stretch out a bridle somehow or something, or over time they kind of wear out a little bit riding hard, you can make those adjustments easily on this wing and your customizations as you kind of find out how you like to ride. So I think that's really neat and simple, and just really goes towards durability in the long run with less maintenance, because foil kites do have maintenance from time to time on these bridles, and the more splices you have, the more load each line is going to take, and the more options you have for having those issues and making those issues more and more complex. So this is pretty straightforward. I like it. The connections into the canopy are high quality. They're really nice and reinforced, and just high quality construction like you'd expect from a Peter Lynn kite. Also in the Aeryn wings, and their design team out of the Netherlands are doing a really nice job with this. It's stuff that you see on the high-end pair of wings, the more expensive pair of wings, trickling its way down into the more affordable, more everyman kind of pair of wings where you're looking for more durability, you're looking for more bang for your buck, You know, maybe you can buy 2 wings, or maybe buy 3 wings for the price of 2, or 4 wings for the price of 3, sort of thing. So it's a good thing to have those options, those tiers, depending on what your personal preferences are and how you want to treat them and what kind of longevity are you looking for, versus just the peak performance, peak top end, smallest, lightest, fastest, you know, at this premium price. And, you know, maybe they don't last as long if you're putting them through the rough situations and really treating them bad. So it's an option for that. As I mentioned before, we have some nice stiffening ribs here. These work really nice. The spacing on these is a little wider than some of the others we're testing. So I was curious about that, you know, if we need so many different ribs or not. And in this particular design, I think it works quite well. It keeps it a little lighter with the heavier duty canopy. I think their stiffening still keeps a nice leading edge shape. Maybe not quite as perfect as some of the real pricey options in the market, but it still is doing its job really well. There are not a crazy amount of bridle attachments on the canopy, so it doesn't get overly complex. It's pretty easy to look at and figure out. Going into the wingtip here, good looking graphics too, good colorway, visible colorway, which is nice for safety's sake. Coming to the wingtip on these, they terminate in kind of this flat way, but there's not as much stiffening going on here. So sometimes this will flap on the wingtip, on the trailing edge especially, if you're pointing a little too hard into the wind and you don't have that proper sail angle. So it's a small quirk in this one. It's not necessarily a horrible thing, just something to be aware of. If you really hate, you know, that chattering or that little bit of flapping in the wingtip, it can be a little unnerving until you get used to it. And then once you kind of find out where that sweet spot is on the wing and you tune up your bar for the way you like it, then that is pretty much resolved. So small detail, but something that is easily adapted to. And yeah, so we've got those stiffeners in the trailing edge here, kind of almost to the end. You can see it right here. So that really helps the wing fly smoothly through the wind when you're driving upwind and you're riding more powered up. This wing, surprisingly, is super smooth and efficient, which is something we haven't seen yet out of a more affordable wing. Really, you know, that kind of performance thus far has been reserved for our top tier wings that you're really going to pay a bit more for. So it's exciting to have an accessible option that has that range, that has that upwind ability, that has that performance at a lower price tier. So this is exciting. I think it's going to get more people into the sport. If you're getting into it and you're like, man, I think I'm going to buy one wing, try it out. I don't know if I'm going to do it all the time. I don't know if I'm going to love it. I don't want to invest a ton right off the go. I think this is a really great option. In reviewing it, at first I flew it and I was like, okay, on the beach, we feel pretty good. You know, the bar feel is maybe a little bit finicky out of the box, where it wants to be flown at a certain angle, and it's easy to backstall it or front stall it a little bit too much. Whereas other wings, especially in this price point on the beach, are going to fly a little bit more, just grab it and fly, and it's going to pull hard. But that's because they're not flying into the wind at all. And a lot of times those wings end up being just terrible upwind, ending up just being downwind machines and limited speed range because you can't edge into the wind and upwind and kill that speed in apparent wind. They just collapse on themselves or drag you so hard downwind that you can't drag them upwind very well because they sit too deep in the window. So it's something, you know, that you'll feel on the high-end, speedier models, but also the Aeryn P1, where you're going to want to fly it on the beach a little bit and find out where it likes to fly. I will say, after I rode it a little bit, I wrapped the front bridles because I was riding upwind and I'm like, man, this feels like kind of an odd angle on the bar. And I've done it on some other pair of wings as well. just feeling it out. And I know some of the other wings in the market are also designed to have that, where you can wrap that front bridle around the end of the bar like this and give it kind of a second gear and a lighter bar pressure. So I gave that a try, and it all of a sudden locked in and felt really great and really easy and more intuitive. And it just kind of finds that flying position automatically and has a bit more of a neutral bar position when you're riding. So I did it getting up, or I did it once I was up and cruising around. I was like, oh man, this thing is sick. It locks right in. It's a lighter bar pressure. It's kind of finding that upwind angle without struggling as much, without as much flutter, without that wingtip, flapping and deforming. So for me, the magic trick is once you're up, at the very least, wrap that bar end and get it into that flying position if you're riding upwind, if you're riding overpowered. And that just tips the front of that canopy in a little bit more, helps it drive upwind more efficiently, and just feels overall just easier to fly and higher performance. So once I did that, I started flipping back and forth, regular, wrapped, and seeing, okay, what are the fine differences here? And personally, what I found is I prefer it wrapped all the time. So taking this bridle length and shortening it, we'll say about 3 inches, really made it fly a lot better. For me, it seemed easier all around. The only thing I would say is you might need just a little bit more wind to get on foil, because it doesn't have quite as much downwind pull and grunt. So if you're downwinding, or if you're on, a wing that's maybe a little small for the day and you're struggling to get up, let it out, and you can do it that way and then wrap it. But if you're finding you're getting up fine on the wing, and I was fine wrapped, and I was riding a 4 in like 16 to 18 knots, so I was pretty underpowered and didn't find any issues getting up this way. But I did find, unwrapped, if you find that kind of perfect canopy angle, it does have a little bit more downwind pull. So, if you're really needing that little bit of extra pull, especially downwind, if you're trying to lock into a wave for takeoff, downwind, straight downwind, rather than cutting across the wind to get up, sometimes being unwrapped can make sense too. So I haven't quite resolved if I want to delete these pigtails. I think, at some point I might shorten or delete these once I really commit to that shorter line on the leading edge. But for now, I'm leaving it how it is. That way I easily have both modes, no big deal. Flies great with it wrapped like that, no big deal. So that's an option. The other thing you could do, I guess, is just add a short pigtail on both of these bridles. And I haven't really played much with it, whether I need different sizes on each to really fine tune it to my needs, but it felt really great just wrapped like this. So I think shortening my front bridles by about 3 inches is ultimately where I'll be. But it's easy enough to do that just by wrapping the end of the bar too. And that way you have both modes, first and second gear, so to speak, right there at your fingertips to do that. So that was the big discovery for me on this wing. It's made a bigger difference, stock versus wrapped, than any other wing I've flown. So I think that's important to note. The other interesting thing about this is rather than one pigtail coming off of the bar here, like most wings have, we have 2. So 2, 2, 2 in this kind of V split. And the way the bridles come off, as you can see here, are in like these 2 stages. So I think that has a lot to do with the stability of this wing. Rather than being balanced off of a single point down the center and kind of arcing out, these come straight from the bar in 2 directions. And if you're familiar with kiteboarding, it's kind of like a high V versus a low V centerline split. So when you have that higher angle and kind of that teeter-totter, it wants to roll from edge to edge a little faster and be a bit more tippy. When you have them coming off the bar right straight like this into a V, and the way that they're connecting to the wing is less centered and more balanced between 2 points, you get a smoother, more stable flying experience. And it's not quite as agile when you're telling it where to go, but once you like point it in a certain way, it just kind of stays in that trajectory. So I find it smoother and more stable than a lot of the wings in the market. So I think this is an awesome wing for new riders that want to progress. If you want to do back loop, you know, kind of roll tricks with a wing loop, you know, maybe this one isn't quite as agile and hyper as the others, but I think most riders at this point in the game aren't looking to do stuff like that. They're looking for something that stays out there, doesn't need a lot of babysitting, flies smooth, flies stable, and this is that. You don't need to worry about the wing getting out of control and grabbing a wingtip on a wave or something and sending you over the handlebars. You know, for the most part, it just goes where you point it and stays stable there until you tell it to go somewhere else, which is a cool feeling. It's definitely less mind on the wing and more mind on the riding, which is a bonus in my opinion. I think it's just a little bit more set it and forget it, pull and go in terms of the riding experience. So that's something new and exciting from the Aeryn P1. I'm a big fan. Now, what are the negatives of this wing? We've talked about a lot of positives, a lot of unique things about this wing, and I think for the most part it is positive, positive, positive. It's a great flying wing. Price not considered. Price considered, this is one of the best bangs for your buck in the market, so that's really cool. The canopy is a ripstop style canopy. So if you're a kiteboarder, this is going to look really familiar. It is, you probably can't see it, but it's a 3x3 ripstop. So this is a heavyweight ripstop type material. It's extremely stiff, durable, and that's part of the reason why you can have these broader spaced ribs. There's not as much stretching going on in the material. There's not as much movement because it's just naturally more stiff. Now the downside of that is it's a little heavier weight, so I don't notice any downside of that. If you can fly this thing and actually ride, it flies great. You know, if you try to fly it in 4 knots or something, it's not going to fly as nice as some of the lighter weight models, being that it has more bridle lines, heavier weight canopy, but you can't ride in those conditions anyway, so unless you're just a big fan of flying these on the beach standing there, it's kind of a non-issue. The packability, however, is a little different. So most wings that are a 4 meter, I mean, I can sloppily pack that thing away, throw it in my ozone stash belt. Simple, no problem, just cram it in there and go. Now, I'll do a quick demonstration for you guys on this one. And I'll just pack it up from all the lines quick. So as you can tell, it wads up really nicely if you go with all the lines like this. And a lot of times this is good enough. You can go ride, surf, have your time, throw it back out. Everything's smooth, sorted out. No splicing, no splits, so these all stay well sorted. But now when I go to pack this sucker up and wad it up to shove in my belt, you know, it's a little bigger. So it takes a little bit more effort to get it to pack down because that material is stiffer. It doesn't want to wad up quite as easily. On the flip side, it also doesn't get as wet. So you have less weight in it when it's wet. It relaunches a little easier after it takes a dunk. It's not going to be quite as sticky, wet, soggy as the lighter materials. So that's a cool thing. But you know, packing this down takes a little bit more effort. I would say the 4 meter is about as maximum I could fit in an ozone stash belt. This would fit in my NSI Parawing pouch super easily because it's a little bigger. So that's probably the easier option rather than trying to really fold it meticulously while you're riding and stash it. But throw it back out, good to go. The other thing this one does quite well, and not all of them do, is stash from the A-lines. So if you're just looking for a quick stash and go, you know, it folds up really nicely. You know, there's a little bit of an issue there with the concertina on the center of the leading edge, but quite good. and we can throw this back out at any time, totally sorted out, ready to go. So it does fly off the A-lines really nicely. The other thing you can do on this one, and not all of them do this well either, is go with A and B lines. So we're gonna grab it, tighten it, and then you've got this a little bit more, you know, smooth, compact wad, and it's still gonna throw out really nicely, leading edge first, without rolling or twisting like sometimes it does when you're grabbing all 3 line sets. So this one, interestingly enough, I end up grabbing it A and B a lot of times, which is cool. You get this kind of pre-wadded effect. If you decide you want to pack it down, it's really nicely wadded up and done there to pack away. And then when you grab it back out, you know, you can just find your A, put it out, and those lines sort out really nicely because, again, they don't have any rough ends. They don't have any splices to get tangled on or looped through. They all just kind of fall naturally, which is cool. This is what the outside of the wing looks like. Pretty cool looking. Some good graphics, not going crazy, adding extra weight, but they're visible. They look neat, and it's good stuff. So, my opinion of the Aeryn wing, it's a wing that I could see in my quiver if I was buying my own wings. If you're a person that's worried about the budget and you're like, man, I only have this much to spend, I'd rather have 3 wings than 2 and broaden that range, and it's okay. I can pack it down a little larger. You know, having a perfectly, you know, tight soda can size pack down isn't my top priority. I think this is a top wing choice for sure. I think if you're somebody that wants to step into this sport lightly and you want a high performing wing that you can trust for a long time with minimal effort in terms of the maintenance and the repairs and things like that, and if you just want something that's going to work for a long time and not have to stress about it, I think this is a great option. I think it's really a practical choice in the wing lineup. Is it the fanciest, highest end, lightest, no compromised material? No, but it's proven material, stuff that we know lasts, stuff that for the average rider is going to provide a lot of excitement and, you know, easy user experience and just a lot of fun for the smaller dollar. So I'm a big fan of it. It's the dollar menu choice. Not that it's a dollar, but it's that kind of mentality, I guess. So if that speaks to you, you want a really good Parawing and you don't want to pay $1,200 for one wing, I think this is a really solid choice. And kudos to Aeryn and parent company with Peter Lynn for you guys coming for a version 1 with the P1 with a really high-end wing. It's clear that you guys really know what you're doing, making these non-inflatable wings and kites, and you've done a really nice job balancing all of those variables. So kudos, guys. Anyway, look forward to riding this wing some more, getting them on more sizes. The 4 meter is kind of my staple wing for our conditions. It gets me going, you know, 15 to upper 20s, maybe even 30 on a downwind run with a fast foil. But its sweet spot, I would say, really is somewhere between that 18 and 25. That's really where it's happiest. And you can push the top end if you know what you're doing and drive it upwind and kill some of that apparent wind, you know, just by driving hard upwind and killing some board speed. But it's really well behaved in the upper end of its range, which is rare for a more affordable wing. Most of the affordable wings in the market today are just horrendous upwind. So this thing's awesome for that, and it's exciting to see more brands jump into the Parawing thing, especially brands with a lot of experience in sail making. I think they come with some fresh ideas and a really solid product here. This has been Tucker with MACkiteboarding.com. If y'all have any more questions, feel free to contact us at the shop, email, website, live chat, call on the phone. You can also drop comments or questions in the comment section below. If any of y'all have ridden one of these, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section. Share it with all of us so we can all learn from one another, and maybe you had a point about it that I didn't touch on the video. That's great. So please interact in that comment section below. Hit subscribe if you want more of these parawing videos. This is a new thing, so we're testing as many as we can, getting as many as we can in the shop that we're enjoying, and we'll see where this whole thing goes. Take care.